Hi everyone, welcome back to the London Football Show. We thought have to do a podcast before the big finals coming up involving two English clubs, and obviously we'll review the Premier League season. We'll start off with the Premier League and then we'll move on to the preview of the two finals. So we'll start off obviously with the champions. How many Premier League games do we all play a season? And it's the same outcome. Just one team. You might as well keep the trophy permanently at the Etihad, it seems like. So I'll just ask a question more for next season. Can anyone can anyone else win the league next season, basically? Or is this Pep era of dominance going to continue until he's gone?
It's a good question. Do they get stronger? If they end up winning the treble, will that make them even stronger? Have they got room to bring any more players in? They've certainly got the money to bring other players in if they want to. Is their current squad strong enough to continue winning the league? Of course it is. Is there anyone that can compete with them? Depending on the transfer window, I suppose. Liverpool could come again. They showed good form towards the end of this season. Arsenal did a good job, although towards the end they didn't. Chelsea have got a whole replanning to do, so I don't include Chelsea next season at all. I think they might win a cup next season, Chelsea. But in terms of can anyone catch up with Man City? Uh, I think it will be a bit tighter. But then it was tight this season. It was only the fact that Arsenal didn't manage to get over the line. But you've got to credit City for their run of form and winning all them games towards the end. And they looked as if they were comfortable. That's the worrying thing. They looked as if they were comfortable and they changed their team up enough, but always having a strong bench. So, are they going to lose any players? Maybe one or two, but the one or two they might lose aren't really proper players. I don't think really. They could lose Kelvin Phillips. But I don't know. To answer your question, Sion, I'd like to think there is a team, but I think you can't guarantee which team it would be. It could be Liverpool, it could be Arsenal, could be even Man United. But other than that, yeah, you might as well keep the trophy there for most of the season for next year.
Was that fun?
I do think teams can challenge. I think the two I have in mind are Arsenal and Liverpool. Like you mentioned, it was a 38 game race, not a 2 game race against Man City. If Arsenal just won all their games, they would have won the league, regardless of whether they should have beaten City in one of the games or two of the games they played in the season. When you look back at the teams they bottled it against, West Ham, apologies, that's in, but they were towards the bottom half, relegation battling team. You've got Everton, who almost got relegated on the last day of the season, lost to them. Southampton drew 3-3. These are teams that are right at the bottom. Yes, they've got more fight for it because obviously they want to stay in the Prem, but Arsenal also want to win the league. And yet, against these clubs, they bottled it big time. They failed to beat them. And yes, 6 points doesn't tell the whole story. But when you think about it, there was 3 draws: Liverpool, West Ham, and Southampton, and they lost 6 points in total. Those 6 points could have been that difference to win the league. And so for me, if a team like Arsenal next season can produce against the rest of the 18 teams and they just lose to Man City, that should be enough for them to win the league. But then we have to also consider whether Man City would do the same thing. But we've seen them drop off this season slightly here and there. During January, they had their blip, lost to us, and then Arsenal went to Tottenham and won, and that gave them the edge. So I think Arsenal can do it again, but it's about their mentality. This is twice now we've seen with Arteta. Towards the end of the season, he crumbles. Bottled Europa, Champions League last season, bottled the league this season. Is there something going on deeper? Is it the players are too young, they're not experienced? Is it that they don't have that winning mentality? Do they not know how to be composed and get through the finishing line towards the end of the season? I'm not sure, but that's something Arteta has to work with the squad. In terms of Liverpool, I think, yeah, we've seen Liverpool coming back at the end, but with the likes of now they're starting to get rid of the deadwood as well. Milner's going, Firmino played this last game. Henderson's pretty much getting old as well, so they need to start buying players, getting a new midfielder, in my opinion. If they do, I think they'll be back. I know we all fumbled last year predicting Liverpool to win the league, but I think if they make the right signings and they don't have that off-peak season again, I think they can challenge. With Man United is an interesting one because if we win the FA Cup, I think we'll definitely be on everyone's radar. Two trophies, Champions League. I think people will have a high expectations. I'll have high expectations myself. But then I'm also going to be considerate of who and what we bring in the transfer window. Currently, we know what the outgoings are. Maguire's gone. McTominay might be leaving. There's others that are going to be leaving as well, Deadwood as well. And then it shows that Ten Hag is serious and he's starting to do it early. Talks of Mason Mount coming to the club. For me, I think he's a great player. Yes, he's fallen off recently, but if Ten Hag can utilize him and find his potential and use it to the best, don't see why I can't be a world class player on this day. But yeah, it goes. I mean, I don't think me personally will be challenging for the league. I think it's still early. If we do, fair enough, I'll take it. It will exceed my expectations. But for me, I want us to challenge, but I'm not expecting a first place finish. I think for me, next season, I don't want to finish anything less than 8 to 10 points behind the league leaders for a second season with Ten Hag. If we're talking other teams in the big six, Chelsea, I said it, the light at the end of the tunnel is a very long tunnel. They have to go through a completely new rebuilding phase. I think Pochettino already is 12 players is called out to be sent off. Felix is one of them. So he's going to completely rebuild the squad. I don't think he'll be able to achieve anything in his first season. Spurs, I think it's just Harry Kane. It's just a one-man team, in my opinion. That guy is incredible. I think what he's achieved for Spurs this season, I think he doesn't get the credit he deserves. And it's because of Haaland, purely because of Haaland. To say Kane scored, was it 30 or 31 goals in this season for such a dead Spurs team, Son not performing, Richarlison 1 goal in 34 Prem games? It is ridiculous. And Kane pretty much carried them. Yes, they're not in Europe and whatnot, but I don't see Spurs coming back. And if Kane leaves, I think not the end of Tottenham, but I don't see Tottenham finishing anything above 8th next season. If the likes of Brighton, Aston Villa, even Brentford, they were only 1 point behind them. And I was told Sion, had we just beaten Spurs at the Spurs stadium, Brentford would have finished above Spurs, and Spurs will be 9th this season. So I think there's not going to be any progress. I think those are the only teams that can challenge City for the title. I think Arsenal and Liverpool. United, I'll have to see the transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. If I had to hang my hat on one team, it would be Liverpool, purely because they're the only team that have shown they're capable of getting 90 plus points. Obviously they finished 1 point behind City 2 seasons, 18-19 and 21-22. So I mean, if you're gonna challenge Man City, the maths is sort of simple, right? You have to try aim for 30 wins. 30 wins is 90 points. You add a couple of draws to that, but it's easier said than done. But if I did have to hang my hat on one team, it would be Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, because Arsenal, they sacrificed all the cup competitions this season to get 84 points. Next season with Champions League football, I mean, I don't know. You're not going to want to get knocked out of the Champions League, are you? You're going to try to aim to go far in that, anyone that qualifies for the Champions League. So you're going to have to sort of rotate your squad more. You need even more squad depth than they needed this season. So I did really think their chance was this season, but they might prove me wrong. Who knows what they will do this summer. But yeah, Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. I feel like Liverpool, yes, they've had a bad season, but feel like they don't need much. For me, it's the midfield mainly. Maybe one centre back and possibly two midfielders. I think McAllister's nearly done, so I'm sure they will add at least one more midfielder, because obviously the clear out in midfield is Keita's leaving. Obviously Milner's going to Brighton. Is it Chamberlain? I'm pretty sure those guys, that will be the end of them. So yeah, I do think Liverpool probably have the least to do, even though they came fifth this season. But yeah, I do expect them to. There's no way I expect Liverpool to have another bad season to the way they did this season, because that's been their sort of trend recently. Like season before last, obviously that was mainly due to the Van Dijk injury, but they sort of fell apart but managed to recover third in the end. So yeah, they're the only ones really I see, but that's based on obviously what they've done over the past few years before last season in terms of the title race. But moving on, surprise package of the season, one team and your reason why. I'll start. It was between two. Brighton and Fulham for me, but Brighton, I think qualifying for European football for the first time in their history sort of edged it towards them for me. So yeah, if I had to pick one team for the biggest overachievers this season, yeah, I'll give it to Brighton and Roberto De Zerbi. James?
Right, this is difficult because I've got a few, but it depends on what the actual question is. Are you saying who were the biggest overachievers or the surprising team?
I think
Go
that's another way
surprising
to
team.
word it. I think you can also describe as an overachiever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like the thing is, if I look sort of top half of the table, you know, I could say like Man United. You know, did they surprise people with getting to two cup finals, finishing top four? Possibly. When you look at the start of the season, when the likes of Tottenham and Liverpool finished outside the top four, Newcastle, you look at Newcastle, could they be a surprise package? You know, Eddie Howe, like, you know, did I expect them to be finishing in the top four? Possibly not. I expect them in the top, say, 6 or 7. So, like, Newcastle have got to be within a shout for me, definitely as like a surprise, just to keep that consistency where you sort of think they're gonna like come unstuck here, and then all of a sudden they pick out a result. Like they were winning a lot of games 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. But then they started to find a bit of form. Their strikers found a bit of form. So they were putting in some good performances. And I think Eddie Howe always seemed to be stupidly, in my opinion, under pressure all the time. Whereas like I think he handled it really well. So you know, you could say Newcastle, but then like you know, I look elsewhere. You know, I think Sion's right. You've got to credit Brighton. You know, but then you could say you know, surprise Villa. You know, sack Gerrard, put them new manager in Unai Emery. No one gave him a chance because of what he did at Arsenal and then where he went and all that. But he's really shown his class and quality. You know, he's up there in the top 5, 6 managers now in the Premier League without a shadow of a doubt. You know, people talk about, you know, Chelsea looking for a new manager, Tottenham looking for a new manager. You know, Tottenham should go in for him, you know? And like, look at what he's done with Villa. You know, they finished what, sixth, I think, sixth or seventh,
Yeah,
you
seven.
know? So like, you know, you could cost, but then you go down the bottom of the table and you've got the likes of Bournemouth. You know, they got battered by Liverpool at Anfield. Scott Parker loses his job. They put in Gary O'Neill that everyone thought was just going to be temporary, just for a few weeks. Well, that few weeks turned into the whole season, and he kept them up comfortably kept them up. Did a terrific job with no budget whatsoever. Stadium that can only hold about 20,000. You know, he done a terrific job. Whether he can maintain that for next season, I'm not sure. And then you look at Forest. You know, everyone had them down to go down, and everyone thought they were still going down. But yet their home form, he did a terrific job managing the 28 players that he had. He's now offloaded a load anyway. So, like, you know, that's it. But if you want an answer to the question, my surprise package or my overachievers or my team that did really well under a lot of pressure, I'm going to take it from the start of the season. I'm going to take the first few months of the season and then look at where that team is now. So I'm probably going to edge towards. It's a tough one, but probably Villa.
Okay, and James makes a good point on Unai Emery. I've always said for me, like when you look at what he's won, 4 Europa Leagues, he's in terms of current managers, he's probably in the top 10 in terms of CVs in Europe, probably 7th or 8th. There's not many managers with a more impressive CV than Unai Emery, and yeah, obviously Brighton as well, losing Bissouma and Cucurella last summer. They're their 2 best players. I mean, I didn't expect them to go on kick on and finish where they have this season because most other clubs, if you're losing your best players, they're not going to be able to have the recruitment to replace them, arguably with even better players. So, but yeah, James as well. Villa, superb season, and it's funny because remember past few seasons I've been putting Villa as my surprise package, and then the one time I don't now they go and actually prove it. But Razanthan, yours?
For me, it was between two. It was between Villa and Newcastle. I think no one would have predicted Villa to finish seventh, the Conference League. No one. I don't think there's maybe 3% of people would have probably predicted Newcastle to finish Champions League. I think, yes, we all saw it coming, but we never saw it coming this early into this is it the Saudi era? I think what Eddie Howe has achieved is amazing. Whether he keeps up the same consistency next season, we'll have to find out. Is it a one season wonder? Can he keep this up? Will the Champions League be able to attract players to Newcastle now? Because that was one of my biggest questions. Yes, you have a new owner, you have a lot of money now, but is that enough? Will players, big players, want to come to a team like Newcastle? And now there's no reason why they shouldn't. Top four, finish in the Prem, Champions League football, and a straight qualification as well. Financial backing's there. They've got a great manager. The team love it. You can see the chemistry. You can see them vibing off each other. It's all great. So for me, it's Newcastle. I think considering they also finished, I think it was 11th last season, to jump 7 places, that's probably one of the biggest upgrades this season. No one saw that coming. Maybe if you told me Newcastle top four finish 2 seasons or 3 seasons later, yeah, I would say 100%. I would say there's no excuse given the takeover. Well, this season, yeah, no one saw that coming. And also, I think the fact that Chelsea fell off, Spurs fell off, Liverpool's inconsistency didn't help. It just gave them that pathway to just slot into nicely to fourth. And even questionably, they could have even finished third if they just didn't bottle the last 2 games. I mean, we were poor during a period and they overtook us. And it was just the last 2 games that we overtook them, beat Chelsea 4-1 and then beat Fulham last day of the season.
Yeah. Relegation is Leicester I'm going to focus on because obviously what they've achieved sort of over the last 7-8 years since they got promoted in 2014. Obviously we won the title in 2016. So I just wanted to discuss them and what's gone wrong for them with their whole relegation back to the championship. I'll start on this because I know during COVID they sort of they lost a lot of revenue because I think their owners, they own like travel companies or sort of airline companies. And obviously during COVID, when we're in lockdown, you're not going to be traveling sort of too much. So apparently, I don't know, I've read a bit about it and that's sort of their main sort of source of revenue. So losing that money, I think they had to sort of sell some players. Obviously, Fofana, we bought him for 75 million. They didn't really replace the players they've sort of been letting go over the past year to 18 months. So for me, that sort of a big factor. And then I don't know what the whole story was with Kasper Schmeichel, but for me, big personality in the dressing room, their captain, leader. And I do think these things make a difference in terms of having those leaders on the pitch. Like for relegation battles, especially, I think is vital. So I don't know what you both think, but for me, in terms of on the pitch, Kasper Schmeichel for me is the biggest factor. I don't know what happened with him. Was it a falling out? But where did he end up going to? Was it Nice? I was surprised by that. For me, he came out the blue completely. And yeah, I think sort of if I have to sort of narrow it down to a few factors, I'm gonna probably say the loss of revenue and losing big players like Kasper Schmeichel's probably resulted in their relegation. But I don't know what you both think.
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. You know, sometimes you can have a bad season, change of manager. I agree with you that they lost some big players. And they never replaced Kasper Schmeichel. So it's a difficult one. But to think that they won the Premier League, the FA Cup, and all that, but then prior to winning the Premier League, they were a yo-yo team anyway. Do you know what I mean? So they lost in that playoff championship game to Watford at Watford in that big sort of chance when Harry Kane was on loan to Leicester. So I don't know. I wanted Everton to go down if I was honest. So I was,
Same. Sorry to any Everton fans, but yeah, I agree with James. Yeah, go on.
So yeah, I would have liked we allowed Leicester to beat the last game of the season purely simply because we hoped Everton might have faced a bit of trouble. But I don't know. It's a shame to see a club like Leicester go down. But if you look at their form and what they were like as a team prior to winning the Premier League, they were always a nature of going up and down, up and down. So, they've only got reverted back. But I think they should have kept with Brendan Rodgers. That's the mistake they made towards the end. But whether he lost the dressing room or what, I'm not sure. But then, What did Dean Smith do? Same with Sam Allardyce. What did he do at Leeds? 4 games, 1 draw, 1 point. What did Leicester? What did Dean Smith do? Yeah, it happens. It happens. But I don't. The Championship next season. You could do a podcast just on the Championship, let alone the Premier League. That is like the Premier League, the Championship now.
Was that fun?
I'm gonna slightly go against Mr. Dutton and say I think the problem was they didn't sack Brendan Rodgers early enough. I think the FA Cup was holding him on for dear life. And I think that time ran out and then they decided to sack him. I don't think that's purely where it went wrong. I think it's multiple factors. Like you mentioned, they had to they offloaded a lot of players, but you got to remember these players that were offloaded, they were towards the end of the season, towards the end of the window. I think Fofana was probably like a deadline day or something like that. You never get rid of one of your best players on a deadline day and not have a contingency, aka a player already in the squad. It's ridiculous. I would hate for my team to let go of someone like Rashford and then we don't have a Rashford-like replacement either on the same day or come in July, June ahead of time because then we're screwed for the season. So there's people like Fofana, someone that was integral for their squad, left the team. They don't have any replacement like for like replacements. And it just set them down. I do think there's also not necessarily we don't know. There might be issues in the club or things not going well. We know Tielemans is on a free now, didn't sign a contract extension. There's no really talks either, no negotiations happening. He's now going to be free this summer. I would like to think he'll go try a club in the Prem, but we'll see. Maddison, I think he should be on his way out. I think he's just too good for Leicester now. You can't be, I think it's 10 goals, 9 assists in a Premier League season and be in a championship squad. That's not acceptable. Players like Harvey Barnes as well. These were players that were pulling it, and unfortunately, it wasn't good enough for them. Also, just to touch on the whole keeper situation, remember how awful Danny Ward was at the start of the season. He was horrendous. I think also they got the keeper situation completely wrong. And I think that was their downfall. I think there was a stat, what was it, like 0 clean sheets in 26 games? That's just not acceptable. To not be able to stop a goal from going in 26 games.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
good enough.
as you said, like with Leicester as well, it's potentially a long road back because they're going to lose their star men. Someone's got a bargain there with James Maddison for 20 million now in the Prem, probably 20, 30 million. Harvey Barnes, there's no way there's not going to be. Maddison, I'm already seeing him linked with about 4 or 5 Premier League clubs already, and it hasn't even been a week or what since they went down. So yeah, Leicester, it could be a long road back. And as James said, Championship next season, loads of Premier League sort of caliber level teams there. So could do a whole podcast on that alone. But moving on now to previewing the cup finals. We'll start off with today's game, FA Cup final. Sonny, right, we start with Xanthan.
Can't wait, I'm buzzing for it. Seeing some news about injuries related to both Man City and United. I don't know if it's mind games. I hope it's not. Two of the big players I think is I know Kevin De Bruyne is one. I'm not sure if the other one is either Diaz or Rodri. If they are, it will be a big boost. It will be a very big boost for United. I think Kevin De Bruyne has been outstanding this season. I know we say this every time, but his quality is just amazing. For him to just produce it on the pitch, and now that he has an actual number 9 and a top striker, Haaland, to just bury it, they're unstoppable. But I do think we do have qualities. We've proven that we can keep Haaland quiet, like we did in the 2-1 win. I think 0 shots on target. I think even 1 shot off target. And accumulated, I think 0.15 XG. So if we can produce the same output in the FA Cup final, I don't see no reason why we can't win it. Yes, we don't have Martinez, we don't have Sabitzer, Martial's injured, so it's going to be a tough one. I would like to see Rashford through the middle and Sancho on the left, maybe Garnacho on the right, maybe Anthony, depending on his fitness, but we still haven't got much information from Anthony yet. I would love to win it. I think it's been 7 years now since we won the FA Cup. It is a big trophy. I think it also cement the season for us. It'll be just the perfect way to end it. 2 domestic cups, top 3 finish. You can't ask for a better first season from Ten Hag. And in my opinion, I'm going to say this, we've had a better season than Arsenal. I think, yes, it's great what Arsenal achieved this season, but if we're talking achievements, you need to back it up with success or trophies. You can't, for me, success is measured on trophies. And for me, we've achieved the same thing Arsenal did, Champions League qualification, with a trophy and potentially 2 trophies. For me, Arsenal now need to go into this window, get some key signings, and then continue this, or not necessarily the momentum, but produce the same output next season, but show something for it. If not, everything they did this season was for nothing. We've seen the likes of Liverpool, Man City bounce back from a hard season. Liverpool 18-19, 1 point off the towel. Next season, won it clear, 99 points. Arsenal need to do this now. If they don't, all this talk they've been having this season is gone to waste. All this hype, all this nonsense they've been chatting on about is nothing. I remember Arsenal fans this season were happy. They were going back to saying, "Oh, top 4 is what we wanted." So now you can't now say top 4 is what your achievement is next season. You have achieved this season. If you're looking at Arsenal as a business, if you overachieve this season, of course you're going to up your standards next season. You're not going to be satisfied with a top 2 finish. You're going to be saying, we finished second this season with 6 points. Next season, we need to be going for the title or winning the title. For me, anything less than Arsenal finishing 3 to 5 points behind the league leaders is bad. But that was a sidetrack. But just going back to United, I think we're fully capable of winning the league. The FA Cup, 2 trophies, 3rd place, happily take it. Better season than Arsenal.
Okay, James, your thoughts on the United Man City final, and then obviously the big one for you on Wednesday night.
Well, today is all about, can United hold on in the first 20 minutes? If City score early, I think it's City's to win. And I think they will want to win to continue that sort of treble possibility. I think it's going to be interesting to see the fans today. First time Manchester FA Cup final derby. I think that's fantastic. I think the atmosphere is going to be great. I hope it doesn't get to the players. I hope it doesn't get to the referee. I'm not too sure who the referee is. That's very key today, I think, that we have a decent referee. But I think United have got a chance. And I think you look at it, there's not many other teams that could play against Man City in a cup final that I would say they've got a chance. So I think United, because it's another Manchester club, adds to that. So I think it's going to be tight, but the key is the first 20 minutes, which sounds predictable, but I think that's what football's all about. If United can hold it, keep their shape, show I think you're right. I think Rashford needs to play down the middle. That's where he needs to play. I think defensively they need to have the best game they've ever had, but they can do it. They can do it, United. I sort of I agree 100% with Rossam, but I don't even think, even if United lost today and City won the FA Cup, United have had a better season than Arsenal, full stop anyway, because they finished just behind them in 3rd place. They've already won the League Cup. They got to the final of the FA Cup. They've had a far better season than what Arsenal had. And you compare Arsenal's season, you could say Nottingham Forest have had a better than Arsenal. Arsenal's aim was to win the title. Forest's aim was to survive. Who achieved what? Forest achieved what they wanted. Arsenal didn't. So that's the comparison that you could put in it. So I don't think Arsenal can say, "Oh, we got our top 4 back," is what we wanted. No, that's not what you were saying in January, February, March time, Arsenal fans. So that's relevant. In the City win, I think it will be closer than what people anticipate, and I wouldn't surprise if United pushed them all the way. But a City win.
Okay, and obviously sticking with you, James, Europa Conference League final on Wednesday. So your thoughts on that as well.
Sorry?
So stick with you.
What? No. Just a bit of Europe there for you. I can't say anything, gentlemen. I really can't. Massive game for West Ham. I think people are just, for me, if I'm honest, really honest for you, I think there's an expectation from non-West Ham fans and also West Ham fans that they've got a real chance to win. But I've done my research. I think it's going to be a tough game. I don't think it's going to be as easy as what people make out. Fiorentina are going to be a tough team. They're going to be hard Italian team, tackle hard, concede a lot of free kicks, which is what their manager's been talking about. And I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be really tight. I think the occasion could get to the West Ham players. None of them have really been in that situation before. The atmosphere is going to be quite intense. It's going to be a lot of build up. Even at the moment, they've been away in Portugal for warm weather training. They've been back a few days. Rush Green's been a wash of media. They've extended the media zone at Rush Green training ground with a big marquee. It's stuff West Ham have not been through with. They've not been through all this for a long, long time. And I think eventually they're either going to, go on the wave and really ride it and have a terrific game, or they could freeze. So I'm nervous. I don't want to make any predictions. My heart, and obviously as a West Ham fan, I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it. But I'm sounding more like Kevin Keegan there. But yeah, if West Ham win, fantastic. As long as they do a good job, as long as they hold their own and they give it their best, I think they've got a real chance. And I think as long as Rice can keep his head, it's a massive game for Declan Rice. It's probably the biggest game he's in. It's probably in the context, okay? Don't get me wrong, playing in a European final for England is a massive game. But in the context of what Declan Rice wants, I hope he keeps his head. Because if he can win this for West Ham and lift that trophy, then he can go as a West Ham legend to whatever club he wants to. Yeah. So it's key for him to carry the team and really push them to get this win, or at least put in a fine performance. But I hope he keeps his head. Recently, he's made some rash challenges. He's just got to calm down, and he can do it. He can do it. Declan Rice, whatever team he goes for. Personally, I want him to go to Liverpool because I think he can give Liverpool's midfield that enhancement along with McAllister from Brighton. But I think he'll end up at Arsenal. That's up to him. Chelsea got rid of him as a 14-year-old. They're going to look back on that as the biggest mistake. They've lost his best mate, Mason Mount, now Chelsea. So, what can they do? But in terms of West Ham Wednesday night, I don't know. It'd be amazing if they won it. If they won it, we've had a better season than any other team in by the top four. Anyone that didn't finish in the top four of the Premier League, if West Ham win it on Wednesday night, they've had the best season in the Premier League.
Yeah,
to finish 14th in the league, 14th in the Premier League, and European Conference champions, a place in Europa League next season, best season.
I agree. And yeah, just before we wrap up, I mean, it's funny. James said he doesn't want to make any predictions, just the score predictions for both games. I'll go first. I do want Man United to win the cup final, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like Pep's playing mind games with this whole injuries thing. I don't think anyone's injured. I saw a rumor saying apparently City gonna be at full strength, so I'm gonna go 3-1 Man City, and I'm gonna go 2-1 West Ham. Resantford.
I'm going to go 1-0 United, and I'm going to go 2-0 West Ham.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go then quickly. 3-1 City. Haaland comes off the bench to score 2. And West Ham to win. Yeah, you like that bit, don't you? You like that, Sia? Inside information. And West Ham, I'm going to go West Ham to win 2-1 in extra time.
All right. Well, there you have it, people. We'll see how the outcome of these games, how they end up. And obviously, Champions League final next week. And then during the summer, we'll be doing shows sort of talking about transfer news, latest signings for our respective clubs and the rest of the Premier League. So take care, like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you all again soon.